Welcome to A Better HR Business, the podcast that looks at how HR consultants and HR tech firms grow their businesses and how they help their employers to get the best out of their people. Remember, for show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Okay, let's get started.
Hello, welcome back to the show. Great to have you along. And I'm really looking forward to today's conversation with Nia Pommerenke. Nia is the founder of a very cool company called SeaBright Culture Solutions, which is a workplace culture consultancy based in California. And we're going to dive in and find all about the business and how it helps employers. But firstly, Nia, thank you very much for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ben. It's great to be here.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. And before we get into SeaBright Culture Solutions, do you want to just give us the quick overview of you and your background?
Yeah, sure. So I've been working in and around HR for over 25 years, and I've always been drawn to the parts that actually shape how people experience work, culture, engagement, and leadership. I started my own consulting business about 9 years ago. And while I did more general HR early on, to a certain degree, I quickly found myself, gravitating towards culture-focused work. And these days, that's all that I do, essentially transforming workplace culture. And I do it in a focused, pragmatic, no-fluff way that drives real engagement, stronger performance, and long-term sustainable growth in established small to mid-sized organizations that are doing meaningful work, from advancing technology to improving lives.
Nice, very nice. So you've given us the overview of your background and you've alluded to what SeaBright does, but tell us a bit more about SeaBright Culture Solutions. What services does the business provide?
Yeah, so some of the specific services that we offer include a culture and engagement gap analysis, and that's where we get in there and we survey employees to assess how well the organization is doing. And then as a result of that, we provide clear, actionable next steps to close the gap. And essentially, we work with leadership to define the culture and then embed it into every single aspect of the organization so that it becomes part of day-to-day life. And that includes working with the CEO and the executive team on the leadership actions that show employees that this isn't just talk. We also work with HR to implement a set of core practices that have been proven to genuinely engage employees. We also offer a series of people leadership training modules because managers are absolutely critical to culture and engagement. Yet what happens so often, strong individual contributors are promoted without any training at all, and they're essentially left to sink or swim. A lot has changed in what it means to be a good manager. It's not about delegation and oversight anymore. That's obviously a part of it, but really today it's all about building strong relationships and showing genuine care for your team. So in a nutshell, for us, it's about building the kind of culture that drives performance, the type of culture that attracts top talent and makes people want to stay. And all of those things ultimately fuel growth.
Absolutely. It can have a huge impact. You described some of the challenges there, and I think there was a book, The Peter Principle, possibly, where it's people promoted because they're great individual performers, but then become managers because they're good at their job. But what are the main or most common workplace challenges that you see in your work?
So the biggest challenge is when leadership, and particularly the CEO, doesn't recognize how essential it is for them to personally drive the culture. So often, culture is viewed as a short-term project. It's handed off to HR, maybe the communications department, along with potentially a culture committee. When that happens, all that takes place in the organizations, employees roll their eyes and they see it as just another short-term initiative and not a true ongoing change in how the business operates. And I really believe that the main reason most culture change and employee engagement work has failed over the years is because it has been outsourced to HR or communications and maybe the culture committee team with little or no CEO involvement. Now, none of this, of course, is to say that HR doesn't play a critical role as well, because it absolutely does. But it has to be hand in hand with the CEO and leadership. It cannot just be HR alone. I mean, the bottom line is that without visible, ongoing leadership commitment, culture change just can't work. So it's a challenge, but it is a surmountable one.
So what are some of the ineffective ways you've seen employers try to fix or improve workplace culture?
The number one most ineffective ways that organizations try to improve culture is by relying on band-aid solutions. So I'm talking perks like gourmet coffee, free lunches, bring your dog to work days.
Foosball table?
Yeah. Fun picnics and parties, great employee discount programs, and flexible schedules. Now, don't get me wrong, flexible schedules are hugely important today, and the majority of both candidates and employees expect them. But on their own, perks like these, they just don't truly drive real engagement and great cultures. They're essentially like nice to haves, and no one is ever going to complain about them, but they won't keep someone from talking to a recruiter when they call or just doing the bare minimum.
Yeah, can have a terribly negative impact, that's for sure. So in terms of you and the business itself, how did you find the transition from the corporate world to running your own consulting firm, and any advice for others thinking about becoming a consultant?
For me, the transition was relatively smooth, and that's because I had a strong referral network early on that kept me busy. But I learned pretty quickly, although I have to admit, probably not quickly enough, that if you really want to grow, you can't rely on word of mouth alone. I mean, it's always going to be important, but it's not enough by itself. My advice to anyone thinking about consulting is absolutely do it, but only if you're willing to put yourself out there. You have to actively market yourself or learn how to do that with someone like Ben. I really cannot emphasize this enough. I mean, once you go out on your own, marketing becomes your number one job. And I mean that really literally. Don't wait till your website is perfect or your business cards are printed or your freebie is designed. You really amaze yourself at how fast you can get something done when you absolutely have to. Yes, you're going to panic a little bit, but unless you have promised a huge deliverable in 2 hours' time, you're going to figure it out and you will get it done. So the key is putting yourself out there first. You have the skills, but they will not matter if no one knows that you're there and how you can help. Just keep in mind that talent without visibility, it's wasted.
Yeah, that's excellent advice. So talent without visibility is wasted, i.e. you're unable to help businesses if they don't know about it, about what you could do, how you can help them. Yep, fabulous. Yeah. There's a lot of economic, social, technological change happening in the States, but internationally as well. What do you see coming down the line for employers, what they should be aware of in terms of workplace culture and workplace change?
So you're absolutely right, Ben. I mean, there's just no question that we are in a period of rapid change economically, socially, and technologically. As we all know, AI, it's evolving fast for many employees. I mean, that is creating real uncertainty. People are wondering whether their jobs are at risk or whether they're going to still be relevant. And then you add to that the social tensions and the signs of a possible recession, slowing growth, rising costs, corporate pullbacks. And I mean, overall, it's a pretty tense environment. Employees are watching and they're waiting to see what their employers are going to do, how they're going to respond. And that's exactly why workplace culture matters more now than ever. Because even in a tough economy, maybe especially in a tough economy, how organizations treat their people is going to have long-term consequences. Yes, people may stay in jobs during a downturn because it feels safer. There aren't as many opportunities out there, but that does not mean that they're engaged. It doesn't mean that they're bringing their best. And the moment the market opens up again, the best talent is going to leave if they have felt undervalued or overlooked. Now, on the other hand, if employees have been treated well and it's an organization where culture has clearly been a priority, they're going to stay and keep giving their best even through the uncertainty. I mean, what it boils down to is that companies that continue to invest in culture by creating clarity, by supporting their people through change, and by showing that they genuinely care, they're going to come out ahead, and not just morally, but strategically as well. Because the truth is, in a volatile world, culture becomes the one thing that keeps teams steady and connected and pulling in the same direction.
Love that. I'm sort of smiling there because what happens is in boom times, when we then turn into a labor shortage and it's hard to find and attract great talent, then the organizations that have been looking after people in these tough times, as you said, the employees are watching and they know. And so they'll vote with their feet and they'll tell their friends, no, this is not the place for you. And then the employees will be wondering, why can't we find and keep good people anymore? So I love that. Yeah. So this is fantastic. SeaBright Culture Solutions, it's obviously having a great impact and helping employers in different ways. If people want to learn more about the business and about how SeaBright Culture Solutions can help them, what should they do next?
So the best next step is to visit our website at SeaBrightCultureSolutions.com. And that's where people can learn more about our services and our approach. And feel free to connect with me directly on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to talk with leaders and HR who want to create stronger cultures and more engaged employees.
Excellent. So we'll have the link to the website and to Nia's LinkedIn profile in the show notes. But yeah, Nia, I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and insights, both on the business, but on the workplace and the changes coming down the line, all of those combined. Thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. It's been great. And I really appreciate you having asked me to be on.
Thanks for joining us today on A Better HR Business, the podcast that explores the world of HR consulting and HR tech businesses. For show notes and downloads, go to www.getmorehrclients.com/podcast. That's getmorehrclients.com/podcast. Remember to subscribe and share the show with any friends who are busy growing a HR business. Thanks and see you next time.